Late evening in the bustling heart of the city, the Sterling Plaza Tower glowed against the skyline. Most employees had already left, but the building's underground parking garage was still lit, echoing faintly with the hum of fluorescent bulbs. Daniel Reed, a 41-year-old single father, pushed his mop bucket into the far corner of the garage, finishing his overtime shift as a janitor. His dark work uniform was plain, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong, veined forearms that told of a life spent working harder than anyone around him realized. He wasn't just any janitor. His eyes scanned every corner, every shadow, like a man who had been trained to survive in far worse places. Years ago, Daniel had served as a decorated combat medic in the military, but that life had ended the night he held his wife's trembling hand in the hospital. Complications from childbirth had taken her away forever, leaving him with his newborn daughter Lily. Since that day, Daniel had chosen fatherhood above all else. He took ordinary jobs, safe jobs, that allowed him to tuck Lily into bed every night, read her stories, and remind her that she was his reason for breathing. Now, Lily was 10, bright, fearless, and already asking questions about her mother that Daniel answered with careful honesty. His whole world revolved around her school lunches, her bedtime routines, and her laughter echoing through their modest apartment. Tonight, though, something unusual caught Daniel's attention. He noticed the familiar black SUV that always waited for Clara Sterling, the 35-year-old CEO of Sterling Corporation, parked in her reserved spot. The driver leaned casually against the door, his eyes scanning the garage. Daniel froze. Something was wrong. The man's posture was stiff, not the relaxed professionalism of the usual chauffeur. His right hand twitched near his jacket pocket, and Daniel's sharp memory reminded him that the regular driver was short and stocky. This man was tall, broad-shouldered, and unfamiliar. Daniel's instincts screamed. Years of battlefield experience surged back. Moments later, Clara Sterling herself appeared, heels clicking across the concrete, her silhouette sharp in the cold garage light. Known as one of the youngest and toughest CEOs in the industry, she carried herself with unwavering authority. But authority didn't mean safety. Daniel dropped his mop instantly. His voice boomed across the garage with a command that startled even himself. "Ma'am, don't get in that car!" Clara stopped mid-step, frowning. Her eyes narrowed at the janitor she barely noticed on most nights. "Excuse me?" she asked, her hand inches from the SUV's handle. Before she could question further, the driver's facade broke. With sudden violence, he yanked open the rear door, lunging forward with a glint of steel in his hand. A knife. Clara gasped, frozen in disbelief. Daniel sprinted. His body reacted faster than thought. He tackled her sideways, knocking her to the ground just as the blade slashed through empty air. The attacker snarled, slamming the door shut and pulling a pistol from inside his coat. Gunshots rang out, boom, boom, echoing through the garage. Bullets sparked against concrete pillars. Clara screamed, covering her head, but Daniel threw his body over hers, shielding her with his own. "Stay down!" he barked, eyes locked on the attacker. He grabbed a metal pipe from the cleaning cart and charged with the kind of fearless precision that only came from someone who had faced death before. The attacker fired again, but Daniel swung the pipe, smashing the gun from his hand. The two men grappled, fists crashing, bodies slamming into cars. Finally, with a brutal twist, Daniel slammed the attacker against the hood of a sedan, knocking him unconscious. The gun clattered to the floor. Silence fell. Heavy, terrifying silence. Clara's chest heaved as Daniel returned to her side, extending a hand. His work uniform was torn, sweat dripping down his forehead, but his voice remained steady. "Are you hurt, ma'am?" Clara's wide, tear-filled eyes met his for the first time, not as a janitor, but as a savior. Her voice trembled, filled with disbelief and something deeper. You just saved my life." Daniel shook his head, just doing what anyone would. But Clara's gaze lingered. For the first time in years, she felt something stir beneath her hardened corporate armor. She reached for his hand, gripping it tightly, her words barely more than a whisper. "Marry me instead." The words left her mouth before she even understood why. Half shock, half raw instinct. Daniel froze, staring at her in stunned silence. Daniel's heart skipped a beat. For a moment, he wondered if he'd misheard her. But Clara Sterling's lips had parted, her trembling words hanging in the charged silence of the parking garage. "Marry me instead." The absurdity of it struck him like a shockwave. Here was the CEO of a billion-dollar corporation, the woman whose picture appeared on magazine covers, whispering those words to a janitor who had grease-stained hands and a mop bucket waiting in the corner. Daniel blinked, still holding her wrist to check if she was steady. "Ma'am, you're in shock," he said carefully, his voice low but firm. "You don't mean that." Clara drew in a shaky breath, her pride flaring against the fear she'd just endured. She pushed herself to her feet, brushing off her navy blue business suit as if to reclaim her armor of authority. But when her eyes met Daniel's again, There was no hiding the vulnerability in them. "I know what I said," she whispered, though her voice was softer now. "In that moment, you didn't hesitate. You shielded me with your life. My entire security team couldn't do what you did alone." Daniel didn't answer right away. His instincts kept him alert, scanning the garage, listening for footsteps, ensuring the unconscious attacker wasn't waking up. Only once he was certain they were safe did he speak. "Clara," he said quietly, deliberately using her first name for the first time. "You don't know who I am. I'm just the janitor who works the night shift. Nothing more." Clara tilted her chin upward, the old fire returning to her voice. "You're not just anything. You knew the driver was wrong before I did. You fought like someone trained. Who are you really, Daniel?" For the first time, the walls Daniel had built around his past trembled. He thought of Lily, her smile, her laughter, the way she clutched his hand when they crossed the street. Everything he did was for her, to keep their lives simple, safe. Revealing too much could jeopardize that. Still, Clara's piercing gaze demanded honesty. "I don't just want you as security, I want you in my life. Last night when I said marry me instead, it wasn't just shock speaking, it was the truth of what I've been missing." Daniel's eyes widened. "Clara!" But before he could argue further, the office doors burst open. Clara's assistant stumbled in, pale and trembling. "Ma'am, there's been another threat, and this time, it's about your daughter." The room froze at the assistant's words. Clara's daughter. Daniel turned sharply, his instincts already firing. "What did you just say?" The assistant swallowed hard. The caller didn't give details, just a warning. "They said they know where Emma Sterling goes to school." For a heartbeat, Clara's confident facade cracked. Daniel had seen hardened soldiers break less. She gripped the edge of her mahogany desk, her knuckles whitening, her voice almost breaking. "My daughter, Emily," she whispered. Daniel's chest tightened. He thought of Lily instantly, his own little girl with her bright smile and bedtime questions. The thought of her in danger was unbearable. He knew in that moment Clara felt the same fear. He stepped closer, his voice calm but sharp as steel. "Where is Emily now?" "At her private academy 10 minutes away," Clara said quickly, pulling out her phone. Her hands trembled so badly she almost dropped it. Daniel placed his hand over hers, steadying it. "No calls. If the threat is real, we can't risk alerting them. Trust me on this." Clara searched his face, torn between panic and trust. Finally, she nodded. Minutes later, Daniel was behind the wheel of Clara's sleek company sedan, the engine roaring through city streets. Clara sat beside him, her eyes darting anxiously at every passing car. "You drive like you've done this before," she muttered, her voice low. Daniel didn't look at her. "I have." She studied his profile, the way his jaw clenched, the way his eyes scanned mirrors constantly. He wasn't just protecting her out of duty. He was moving like a man who knew the cost of failure. "What are you thinking?" Clara asked. "That fear for your child?" Daniel said quietly. "That's the sharpest blade there is, and the one that makes you willing to do anything." Clara swallowed, her throat tight. "So you do understand." He glanced at her for just a second, his eyes dark but steady. "More than you know." They arrived at the academy, a gated campus with manicured lawns and children playing under the watch of teachers. To an outsider, it looked peaceful, but Daniel's instincts screamed again. He parked and scanned the grounds. "Where's her classroom?" Clara pointed shakily toward the east wing. "Second floor, corner window." Daniel nodded. "Stay here. Lock the doors. No matter what happens, don't get out." "Daniel," Clara began, but his commanding glare silenced her. For the first time in years, someone had looked at her not as a CEO, not as a woman to impress, but as a mother to protect. Daniel moved swiftly across the campus, blending in as if he belonged. His eyes tracked details no one else noticed. A delivery truck idling too long by the fence, a man in plain clothes pacing near the playground, the glint of something metallic under his jacket. Danger, real danger. Inside the east wing, Emily Sterling, a bright 9-year-old with auburn hair tied neatly in braids, was drawing at her desk. She looked so much like Clara that Daniel's chest ached. A shadow loomed at the classroom door. Daniel stepped in just as the man disguised as a maintenance worker reached for Emily. "Don't move," Daniel barked, his voice cutting like a blade. The man froze, startled. The classroom erupted with gasps, children crying, the teacher shouting for order. In one fluid motion, Daniel grabbed the man's wrist, twisting hard until the weapon concealed under his sleeve clattered to the ground. The attacker snarled, swinging at Daniel, but Daniel countered with brutal precision. A knee to the stomach, an elbow across the jaw. The man collapsed to the floor, unconscious. The children cried louder, but Emily's wide eyes locked on Daniel. He crouched down, his voice softer now. "You're safe, I promise." 5 minutes later, police swarmed the campus. Clara rushed into the building, ignoring officers' protests, and wrapped her arms around Emily so tightly the girl squealed. "Mommy, I'm okay," Emily whispered. "The janitor man saved me." Clara froze, turning toward Daniel. He stood against the wall, breathing heavy, his shirt damp with sweat, eyes scanning even now for more threats. For the first time in years, tears streamed down Clara's face freely. She held her daughter tighter, then looked back at Daniel. "You didn't just save me," she whispered. "You saved my whole world." That evening, in Clara's penthouse apartment, Daniel sat at the edge of a leather sofa while Emily curled up beside him, already trusting him completely. She showed him her drawings, giggling when he made silly voices to match her characters. Clara stood in the doorway, watching. For once, she wasn't the CEO, the strategist, the untouchable woman. She was just a mother, staring at the man who had risked everything for her family. When Emily finally drifted off to sleep, Clara approached Daniel quietly. "You could have walked away," she said softly. "You could have left me to handle it with my team. Why didn't you?" Daniel leaned back, his gaze heavy. "Because when someone threatens a child, it's not just your fight. It's mine too. I've been there." She studied him, her heart pounding with a strange mix of gratitude and something else. Something she wasn't ready to name. "You're not just a janitor," she whispered. Daniel gave a bitter smile. "I'm a father. That's all I need to be." Clara's eyes softened, her voice trembling. "Maybe that's exactly what I've been missing." Before Daniel could reply, his phone buzzed. He glanced down, and his blood ran cold. A text from an unknown number. "You saved her this time, but next, it will be your daughter." Daniel's hand trembled as he read the message again. "You saved her this time, but next, it will be your daughter." His stomach dropped. A cold sweat broke across his forehead. "Lily." Clara noticed his expression instantly. "What is it? What happened?" He hesitated, torn between shielding her and telling the truth. But one glance at Emily, sleeping peacefully on the couch, reminded him there was no time for half-truths. "They know about my daughter," Daniel said hoarsely, showing her the phone. Clara's blood ran cold. She pressed a hand to her mouth, then grabbed his arm. "Where is she right now?" "With Mrs. Patterson, my neighbor. She babysits when I'm on late shifts." Daniel's voice cracked slightly, his composure slipping for the first time. "If they so much as touch her..." He didn't finish. He didn't have to. Clara snapped into action. "We're going, right now." The car ride was silent, tense. Clara had insisted on coming despite Daniel's protests. "If this is because of me, I won't hide in safety while your daughter is in danger," she'd said firmly, leaving no room for argument. Daniel drove like a man possessed, weaving through traffic, every second feeling like an eternity. His jaw was clenched so tightly it ached, his knuckles white around the steering wheel. Memories of Lily's laughter filled his mind, her gap-toothed smile when he read her silly bedtime stories. The way she hugged him fiercely every morning before school. She was his reason for everything. If he lost her, he couldn't even finish the thought. Clara, sitting beside him, glanced sideways. She saw a man transformed, not just a protector, not just a soldier, but a father fighting for his child. And for the first time in her life, she realized love wasn't about money or power. It was about this kind of unshakable devotion. When they reached Daniel's neighborhood, his fear sharpened. The modest apartment building looked normal, too normal. The quiet was unnatural. He burst up the stairs, Clara right behind him. He flung open the door. "Daddy!" Lily ran straight into his arms, her eyes wide with fear. Mrs. Patterson, the elderly neighbor, stood pale and trembling. "Daniel, 2 men came by asking strange questions. Said they were from the electric company, but I knew better. I told them nothing. They left just 10 minutes ago." Daniel hugged Lily tighter, relief flooding through him, though his heart still pounded like a drum. He kissed her hair. "You're safe, pumpkin. I've got you." Clara exhaled shakily, her own fear finally breaking into tears she tried to hide. She crouched down, brushing a strand of Lily's hair back gently. "Hi, sweetheart. I'm Clara. Your daddy? He saved me, and now we're going to keep you safe too." Lily studied her curiously, then looked back at Daniel. "Is she nice, Daddy?" Daniel hesitated. He'd spent years keeping their lives simple, small, safe. Letting anyone in felt dangerous. But after tonight, he realized safety was already gone. "She's someone we can trust," he said finally. Clara's chest tightened at his words. Later that night, with Lily asleep in her room, Daniel sat at the kitchen table with Clara. The glow of a single lamp lit their tired faces. "They're coming after both of you now," Daniel said grimly. "First you, then Emily, now Lily. Whoever this is, they're organized. They know our weaknesses." Clara nodded, her expression hardening. "Marcus Webb," she said quietly. Daniel frowned. "Who?" "Former employee, fired for embezzlement. He made threats before. I thought security handled it, but..." Her voice trailed off, filled with guilt. "This is my fault, my enemies, my company. They're dragging you and your daughter into danger." Daniel leaned forward, his voice sharp. "Listen to me. This is not your fault. The people responsible are the ones making these threats, and I'll stop them." Clara searched his face, her chest tightening. She'd built her life on never depending on anyone, but this man, this janitor, this soldier, this father, was tearing down her walls without even trying. "You'd risk everything for us," she whispered. Daniel's eyes softened. "For my daughter? Always? For yours? Now, yes, because I know what it means." For a long moment, their eyes locked. Something unspoken passed between them. Gratitude, admiration, maybe something deeper neither was ready to admit. The next morning, Daniel put Lily's backpack on the table. "No school today. You're staying close to me until this is over." "Daddy," Lily said quietly, "are the bad men coming?" Daniel crouched to her level, his voice steady but gentle. "They won't get near you, Pumpkin. I promise." Clara stood nearby, watching the way Daniel comforted his daughter. Her chest ached at the sight. She'd spent years building empires but had never built anything like this. This bond, this trust, this love. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. A new message. Daniel grabbed it before she could. His jaw tightened as he read aloud. "Meet me tonight, alone. If you want both girls safe, parking garage, midnight." Clara paled. "It's him!" Daniel's eyes darkened, resolve hardening like stone. "No," he said. "He wants you vulnerable, but he doesn't know I'll be there. This ends tonight." That night, Daniel prepared like the soldier he once was. A worn duffel bag appeared from his closet. Inside, the remnants of a past he'd locked away. Not weapons of war, but tools of survival. A flashlight, rope, gloves, a steel baton. Clara watched silently. For the first time, she saw not just a janitor, or even just a father. She saw the warrior he used to be, the man who'd buried his past for his daughter's sake, but was now forced to bring it back. "You shouldn't come," Daniel said, glancing at her. "It's too dangerous." Clara straightened her shoulders. "If this is about Emily and Lily, I'm not staying behind. I'll face this with you." For a moment, Daniel almost argued, but when he saw the fire in her eyes, he realized she wasn't a fragile executive to be hidden away. She was a mother, ready to fight for her child just as he was. He nodded. "Then we do this together." Midnight. The parking garage where it all began. The air was thick, heavy with tension. Shadows stretched across the concrete. Daniel and Clara stepped in cautiously, their footsteps echoing. And then, a voice rang out. Cold, familiar. "Well, well, the janitor turned hero, and the Ice Queen CEO, both exactly where I wanted you." Marcus Webb emerged from the shadows, flanked by two armed men, his smirk twisted with malice. "Tonight," he hissed, "you both pay." The sound of Marcus Webb's voice slithered through the garage like poison. Daniel stepped forward instinctively, his body shielding Clara. His eyes locked on Marcus, the man whose greed had torn lives apart, whose vengeance now threatened innocent children. "You made a mistake coming back," Daniel growled. Marcus smirked, his hands casually clasped behind his back. "No, Reed. My mistake was underestimating you the first time, but not tonight. Tonight, you watch everything you care about slip through your fingers." Behind him, two men shifted nervously, weapons glinting under the harsh fluorescent lights. Clara's breath quickened, but she forced her chin high. "You won't touch my daughter or his." Marcus's eyes gleamed cruelly. "Ah, so you finally admit you have something worth losing. Good. That makes this more fun." Daniel's mind raced. He couldn't outgun them, not with Clara beside him, but years of military instincts surged forward, reminding him of something more valuable than weapons: timing. "Stay close," he whispered to Clara, "and when I move, don't hesitate." The first henchman stepped closer, gun raised. Daniel's eyes tracked every muscle, every twitch. The moment the man adjusted his grip, Daniel lunged. He slammed the steel baton into the gun hand, bones crunching, the weapon clattering across the floor. A swift elbow strike followed, knocking the man unconscious before he even hit the ground. The second attacker panicked, firing wildly. Sparks burst against concrete pillars as Daniel shoved Clara behind cover. He rolled low, closing the distance, then drove his shoulder into the man's gut. They crashed against a car hood, fists flying, until Daniel wrenched the gun away and tossed it across the floor. A brutal uppercut ended the fight. Only Marcus remained. "Impressive," Marcus hissed, pulling a knife from his coat. Its serrated edge gleamed wickedly. "But you can't protect both girls. I'll find them. One day, one way." Rage ignited in Daniel's chest. He advanced slowly, each step deliberate. "You don't get to threaten my daughter, or hers, ever again." Marcus lunged, the knife slashing through the air. Daniel dodged narrowly, countering with a crushing strike to Marcus's ribs. The man staggered but recovered, swiping wildly. The fight turned vicious, brutal punches, the scrape of steel against concrete, grunts of exertion echoing in the cavernous garage. Marcus fought with desperation. Daniel fought with purpose. Finally, Daniel caught Marcus's wrist mid-strike, twisting with bone-snapping force until the knife clattered away. He pinned Marcus against a pillar, forearm crushing against his throat. "You came after my child," Daniel growled, his voice low, deadly. "That's a line you never cross." Marcus choked, his face turning purple. For a terrifying second, Daniel's fury begged him to finish it. But then, he saw Lily's face in his mind, her innocent eyes, her belief that her daddy was a good man. With a growl, Daniel shoved Marcus to the ground instead, restraining him until sirens wailed in the distance. Police stormed the garage, officers dragging Marcus away in cuffs, his threats echoing uselessly into the night. The chaos faded. Silence returned. Clara stepped out from cover, her eyes locked on Daniel. His shirt was torn, blood trickling from a cut above his brow, his chest heaving from the fight. yet his presence radiated unshakable strength. "You saved us," she whispered, her voice breaking. Again, Daniel shook his head. "I just did what had to be done." "No," Clara said firmly, stepping closer. Her eyes shimmered with tears. "You did more than that. You didn't just protect me. You protected Emily, Lily. You protected family." Daniel's throat tightened. Family is all that matters. And then, without hesitation this time, Clara reached up, cupping his bruised face in her hands. Her voice trembled, but her words were clear. "When I said, 'marry me instead,' I meant it. Not because I need a bodyguard, not because I need a hero, but because you showed me what real love, real sacrifice looks like. You showed me what I've been missing all my life." Daniel froze, his heart pounding. He thought of Lily asleep at home, thought of the life he'd built on quiet sacrifice. Could he let someone in? Could he open the walls he'd built so high? Clara's eyes searched his desperately. "Daniel, will you let me stand by you? Not as a CEO, not as someone powerful, just as a woman who wants what you already have. With Lily, a family." For the first time in years, Daniel's defenses broke. He saw not the billionaire CEO, not the powerful executive, but a mother who'd cried over her daughter's safety the same way he did every night. He whispered, voice raw, "You don't know what you're asking." Clara smiled through her tears. "I know exactly what I'm asking." Daniel exhaled, long and heavy. Then, slowly, cautiously, he nodded. "One step at a time." Her smile widened, luminous even in the cold concrete garage. "One step at a time," she repeated. Weeks later, life looked different. Marcus Webb faced charges that would lock him away for decades. Security at Sterling Corporation doubled overnight. But in the quiet moments that mattered, family dinners, helping with homework, walks in the park, the fear faded into something new. Lily and Emily played together often, their laughter echoing in Daniel's modest apartment and Clara's penthouse alike. Clara joined Daniel at Lily's school play, clapping louder than anyone. Daniel sat at Clara's board meeting once, Lily drawing pictures at the table, reminding everyone that beneath the billion-dollar deals were children who needed bedtime stories. Slowly, carefully, their lives began to intertwine. And one evening, as the four of them shared homemade pasta at Daniel's scratched kitchen table, Lily looked up innocently. "Daddy," she said, "does this mean we're like a family now?" Daniel froze, glancing at Clara. Her soft smile met his across the table. "Yes, Pumpkin," Daniel said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. "I think it does." Clara reached under the table, her hand brushing his. Not a demand this time, not desperation, just a promise. A promise that "marry me instead" had never been about a grand gesture. It was about finding love where neither of them expected it, in the messy, beautiful, ordinary moments of family.